My goodness, everyone. It is only Monday evening, and what a week. What a week it's already been in college football and here at the Voice of College Football. So welcome in. We appreciate everybody being here. This only works because of you and your contribution, not just talking about this show. This entire channel, this entire network of 25 channels only works because of your contribution. So we thank you so much for being here. We thank you so much for making this all happen. And when I say so much is going on, yes, following everything that hit us on the field on Saturday and Saturday night, I unveiled the top 25 that actually makes sense. Of course I did. And then we got hit with the aftermath of the Michigan State tunnel assault incident. I posted a video on that here on the main channel. Check that out. That was posted on a Sunday night. I was waiting more information and evidence. So keep that in mind when you watch that video. And then we went live for 2 hours earlier today on the Michigan channel, also here on the main channel, addressing the Michigan State situation, gearing up for a Nebraska show that we have moved from Tuesday to Monday because Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time, we will have our college football playoff rankings watch party. And then later tonight, USC live at 11 Eastern time. And then bam, our top 25 that actually makes sense. And then boom, in the middle of all that, we hear the news that Bryan Harsin was fired at Auburn. And typically I would go live and always go live when a major coach is axed. We've done it for about 5 consecutive years here. Every time a major coach has been axed, we have been on live. However, we were in the midst of our Michigan show from 4 to 6, and that led right into our Nebraska show. So we've not been able to address the Bryan Harsin situation, but we certainly can do that tonight. But first and foremost, it's the top 25 that actually makes sense. And before we get to our first call, let me just check out a few of these comments that came in. We have Gaming Tremor, who says Tennessee should definitely be number 1. Good rankings as always. Hey, Gaming Tremor, thank you. Harry Scott is a Kentucky fan. We've got another one of them around, huh? Tennessee really impressed me yesterday. How Tennessee dropped is beyond me. I guess Tennessee dropped in that other poll, that other ranking. I'm not aware of that. Don't follow it. Don't know it. So Harry, just stick with us. Mike, 3883, I appreciate that you break down your reasoning and what you value in your rankings. You could do a video in the off season on the factors that could be used to rank teams, why some rankings are better or more objective, etc. Yes, we could, Mike. Thanks for the suggestion. Remind me in the off season. Chris Thompson, can somebody ask a Michigan insider bluntly, what the hell is going on with the offense in the red zone? Yes, another topic to be discussed there, but I did address that in a Michigan-Ohio State comparison video. Check that video out as well. What we did there was we looked at now that this past weekend, Ohio State played Penn State and Michigan played Michigan State. Now we've got 3 common opponents to compare the Buckeyes and the Wolverines, and we did just that. Philip, Mark, you got to start giving Illinois more love. One loss with one of the very best rushing attacks in college football. They deserve to be top 10. Understand that you're talking, Philip, to somebody who ranked Illinois way before anybody else. Dr. Bob, as a Tulane alum, I say roll wave. We've got BDTN 342. Can't disagree with this. Go blue. Mike Ford, I'll never understand TCU at number 2. TCU, the undefeated. TCU Horned Frogs with wins over Oklahoma State, Kansas State, who then beat Oklahoma State 48-0. TCU with a huge win against Oklahoma, who's now riding the ship. Check out TCU, Mike. Time to Rhyme lost me at TCU number 2. I get it, though. So you get it, but I lost you. Undefeated and it'll all work itself out. I won't even get into that statement. It will all work itself out. That's one of my favorites, meaning between the lines, read least favorite, horrible statements I hear during college football season. It'll work itself out. Christian Martinez. Wow, I actually agree with this for the most part. It's always weird to see TCU get put at number 7. Steve Brown, flag on the play. Vegas has Georgia beating Tennessee. Vegas knows. Okay, that has nothing to do with my rankings. All right, Steve. I have also said that I would take Georgia over Tennessee. Gregory Krug, if the playoffs are Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee, and Georgia, will the powers that be set the rankings up so that both semifinals are Big Ten, or Big Ten SEC? That's an interesting comment. Are they trying to avoid an all SEC or all Big Ten final? Therefore, they would match up the conferences Big Ten versus Big Ten and SEC versus SEC. Never mind me. I thought the Huskers had the 6 p.m. spot on Tuesday. Did I do something wrong? Okay. Shouldn't have read that. You caught up with our Nebraska time change from Tuesday to Monday. Okay, Andrew. So you don't even have Florida State 25 in this top, but a team that lost to them in New Orleans and has a second loss is number 8. Utterly insane. No, it's not. Florida State's 5-3. LSU 6-2 with a much better schedule. And you understand that they played, and although Florida State did win the game, and we give them due credit for that, check out the rankings week to week, Andrew. Check out the rankings week to week, and you'll see that the Florida State ranking makes total sense. One more, and then we get to the phone lines. Herman has his rankings there. Christopher says, no amount of explaining and reaching warrants LSU being top 10. Jay says, if it's about who deserves because of the games played, why is Michigan over Ohio State? Their good wins are exactly the same, and strength of schedule goes to Ohio State. Not necessarily. They have played the 3 teams that they played in the Big Ten, but in addition to that, Michigan has played Maryland. Ohio State has played Notre Dame. It depends on how you would rate those 2 games. And certainly Michigan was more dominant against the most difficult opponent on the schedule, and that would be Penn State. All right, let's get to it. We got to real MVP on the line. What's going on, man?
Nothing much. How about you, Mark?
I am doing well.
Well, I've got to ask you about Tulane because you talked about them in your video a bit.
Yep.
If Tulane didn't lose to Southern Miss, I believe, do you have an idea of how high they would be?
That's a great question. Well, so they would be the lowest ranked undefeated team. So that would be the first one. All the other Power Fives, the Power Fives all have much better resumes. So they would be at least whatever number that is. And then Alabama would be ranked ahead of them. Who else has one loss?
Oregon, Ole Miss.
Yes, ahead of them.
LSU even?
That would take some thinking.
Because you have LSU at 8, which is ahead of Oregon and Ole Miss.
Well, then there you go. They would be ahead of them.
So they would probably be in about the 15 range.
Yeah, I guess if that's what that all adds up to. Yeah.
Okay, and there's some interesting teams because you didn't have an honorable mention type section, and there's been a lot of good teams this year, Mark, at the probably
Exactly.
25 to 40 range that are just right there.
Did you catch that stat? 42 teams, 42 are either 5-3 or 6-2.
Yeah, it's crazy. And one of those teams that I think is playing good football is the Oregon State Beavers, Mark.
Yep.
They've only had 2 losses all year. One was to USC by 3 points. They got blown out by Utah, but it was a road game, and they've taken care of business, I would say, in the other games. So, how close was Oregon State to making it?
They're close. They're close. They're
Okay, if they
the
play
next 5
Washington
to
this
8.
week, if they win at Washington, are they automatically in, or where some other things have to happen?
Well, again, I look at all the other teams, so they don't play in a vacuum. And if NC State, I don't know who all these teams play off the top of my head. I'm not that acquainted with the schedule this week yet. But NC State and Arkansas, Mississippi State, Wake Forest, those teams are ahead of them. So it would all depend on what happens to them. But I would think that whomever wins that game between Washington and Oregon State, of course, gets a huge push because they're both 6-2.
Yeah, and another team I want to talk about that is ranked in the AP, and I'm not sure how much respect they're going to get in your top 25 that actually makes sense, is the Liberty Flame.
Okay. Yeah, I look at them every week.
Yeah, they're currently 7-1, Mark.
Yep.
And if this was the 12-team expanded playoffs, they would be in a very close race with Tulane in making the playoffs. So, what are your thoughts on Liberty?
Well, let's look at Liberty. Liberty. Every time I say that, I'm tempted to sing the Liberty song. They beat Southern Miss in 4 overtimes. Of course, Southern Miss beat Tulane. They beat UAB by a touchdown. They lost to Wake, and the one loss is a very narrow game. Wake Forest had to score in the last few seconds to win the game, and they're a good team. Akron, Old Dominion, UMass, Gardner. Listen to this stretch after the Wake Forest game. They beat Akron, Old Dominion, UMass, and Gardner-Webb. Like, how do you compare that against? Doesn't almost every team in the country win those 4 games? Like, who doesn't win those 4 games? You with me, DeReal? He's gone. Okay, we're talking about Liberty, and Liberty 7-1. And on the Liberty argument, if you want to take the Liberty side, would be the win against Southern Miss, albeit in 4 overtimes. Here we got DeReal back with us. You back
Sorry
with
about
me?
that, Mark. I apologize for
You're
that.
good.
Yeah, so you were highlighting Liberty's intense schedule they have. They actually play at Arkansas this week.
Yes,
I'm
they
not
do.
expecting Liberty to win. Huh?
So I told you that I have been reviewing ever since they lost to Wake. I've been looking at them every week, and the BYU game, had BYU played something close to what we expected, that would have been a bigger push. This is just showing us that BYU is not very good. If they're losing to a Liberty team by 27 points, by 4 touchdowns, the same Liberty team that beats Akron by 9 and Gardner-Webb by 1 and Southern Miss in 4 overtimes, then I really need to see Liberty beat Arkansas. This is your telling point right here. If Liberty goes to Arkansas and wins, then they're probably in the top 25. If they lose this game, they're done. They're never going to sniff the top 25.
Yeah, and I fully expect Liberty to get blown out in the game. And I'm not sure how much you followed BYU, but they have struggled mightily ever since their big win at
Oh
Baylor.
yeah.
I think that game should have told us more about Baylor than it did about BYU.
Well, getting back to Liberty, this is the fallacy. Well, this is one of the many fallacies with the AP poll and the coaches poll is nobody voting believes that has half a brain believes that Liberty is one of the 25 best teams in the country. Just if you play in the group of 5 and you get to a certain record, again, this record has been bolstered in the last few weeks by Old Dominion, UMass, Gardner Webb, like in Akron. Like, why is that ranking a team? Why does a team get ranked? Because they beat Akron, Old Dominion, UMass, Gardner Webb 4 consecutive, and now even BYU. Why does that get a team ranked?
I don't know, Mark, but what's crazy is in the 12-team playoff, this would be a legitimate playoff team. Like, this would be in discussions because they're only 4 spots away from Tulane right now.
And this would be the prime example of what you bring up about the TV event that we would see. We would see a actual massacre on television that could be 72-3.
Yeah, and currently, if you look at the AP rankings, they would have to play Tennessee.
Yeah.
Tennessee might score 100 points in that game.
If they wanted to.
Yeah, well,
if they chose to.
they might do it accidentally with how many
Yeah,
plays they run.
they could. They could do it with Joe Milton playing the second half and backup line.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is crazy, Mark.
Yeah. This is the perfect example of why the AP poll is so flawed and people don't get it is why do you earn a ranking? So the thing that should earn the ranking for Liberty more than anything else is going to Wake Forest and losing by 1 point. That's what should have earned them the rank. They should have been ranked then. If they were going to be ranked now, they should have been ranked then. All they've done since then is beat Akron by 9 points, Old Dominion by 2 touchdowns, UMass by 18. Doesn't everybody beat UMass by at least 18 points? Gardner Webb by 1 and BYU. That got them ranked. That's the dumbest thing in the world.
Well, Mark, this could be, hey, listen, in the expanded playoffs, this could be a playoff team.
Yeah.
Because of, the representation argument. I'm sure this is the exact representation the group of 5 wanted, potentially making the playoffs is Liberty, which is more than likely going to get completely exposed.
See, I got a comment up there right now from Andrew Mueller, who is questioning me ranking Arkansas. Well, when Arkansas blows out Liberty, and he may or may not, I shouldn't judge it for sure, but if he believes in the AP poll, then he has no issues with the AP poll ranking Liberty.
What do you think the line is? I'm on ESPN.com. What do you think the line is for that game?
Arkansas.
Liberty at Arkansas.
It's 16 and a half.
It's only 13 and a half.
Okay.
The FPI, I'm sure your favorite metric of all time, Mark, is giving Arkansas a 75.6% chance to win the game. So it's saying
92.
Yeah, it's saying that basically 1 in 4 times Liberty would win the football game.
No.
Which I don't see.
No.
And I guess the final thing I'll talk about, Mark, is Brian Harsin. For whatever reason, today was the day that he got fired from Auburn. What do you think about the timing of the move? Who should they go after? And where does Auburn rank in terms of jobs currently available?
Well, I think they should be able to go get a good job, a good coach, because it's a good job. It's a top, I know it's currently not a program that seems to be a top 15 program, but it is. And really the only reservations that anybody should have in taking that job would be being sandwiched in that division and being sandwiched between Alabama and Georgia from a recruiting standpoint and from a fan geographic standpoint, but you can win at Auburn unless things have changed that I'm not aware of down there in terms of what you're going to be given in terms of resources. It's a top 15 job in the country.
I would agree with that, but it's also probably the hardest job in the country to manage expectations.
Yes.
So that's got to play a major factor for whoever decides to take the job. And it seems like they have cultural issues down there. I'm not sure how much that would weigh into it.
Well, that's what a good coach does is he changes culture and he brings his own with him and he leads a team and leads coaches.
Yeah, I've been reading some of the comments, Mark, and as an SEC fan, as a Kentucky fan, I'm going to make Michigan could beat Liberty by what 4 or 5 touchdowns, Mark. Yeah. Ohio State could beat Liberty by what 6 or 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, they like to throw the ball, so yeah, they run it up.
Oregon, it's just a Liberty thing of how bad I think they are. It's not one conference being good, just Liberty being that bad, in my opinion.
And let's understand that this Wake Forest game was a tremendous effort by them, and that happens. And I don't think that they're a horrible football team, but yeah, if they played a real schedule, they would get abused a number of times.
If Liberty played the Big Ten, or even if they played a Big 12 schedule, I think they would go 7-5 or 6-6.
Yeah, and not be ranked.
Right, not be ranked, not be competitive in some of their games. And nobody would talk about them making the playoffs. But hey, when we got the 12-team playoff, baby, let's go Liberty.
Yeah, well, again, I have made this the number one point to any playoff discussion has been do something with a group of 5. Either include them or not include them, but they are not playing the same level of football. So if you include them, it's a bit of a gift. It's a bit of a gift saying you've got to be number 1 out of 60 some teams, and we're going to elevate you past a bunch of other teams that are better than you, but you earned it to a certain degree.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to like the reward of most likely losing to the second or third best team in the country by 35 plus. I can't see that getting old or stale at all in the future in 2028 or 2029. Just so you know, here's the pregame celebration, and 7 minutes into the first quarter, it's 21-0.
Yeah, you wonder at what point that's going to get changed or start to be a topic of conversation beyond just us, for people that can make the changes to say, okay, the average margin of the 5-12 game has been 34 points in 5 years.
Yeah, and I think that would be putting it generously, Mark. But yeah, I guess for some reason my main problem with the playoffs, even more than the representation argument, has been the seeding of the playoffs. Because the seeding is really going to hurt this playoff, in my opinion. Because you're not giving the best teams the best seeds. You're weighting the seeds based on the conference. So you're not going to get the 4th team playing the 5th best team in the second round. You're going to get the 2nd or 3rd best team playing the 4th best team or the 8th best team. And I think that's going to hurt this playoff structure. But hopefully I'm wrong, Mark. Hopefully nothing too crazy happens tomorrow where another coach gets fired, and good luck to all the teams this week.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you being here. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We'll take Mike's call, then we'll check in on some of the comments coming in the chat.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing well. What's up?
TCU at 2.
Yes, I know you hate that.
And I'm just under the impression that the Big 12 just doesn't have a real stand-up team, unless you want to count TCU. But I mean, if TCU had, if the Big 12 had other quality teams where I could say, beating them meant something, like, now let's say, for argument's sake, if Oklahoma State beat Kansas State 48-0, then
Yeah.
I could say, well, TCU beat them. That's a legitimate win. Let's bump them up some.
TCU beat Kansas State.
Or I thought they beat Oklahoma State.
They did.
Okay.
Wait a minute. TCU, Kansas State. They did play. Yeah, TCU beat Kansas State as well. They beat both of them.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm guessing that. So I now did your rankings come out before or after K-State just threw a wallop on Oklahoma State?
The rankings come out after the games are played.
Okay, so
But
you
we
did
wouldn't be
this
talking about
after
that.
Kansas State blew out Oklahoma State.
Sure, the rankings are made every week after the games.
And do you think that had a part to play in you bumping them up to 2?
Kansas State beat Oklahoma State 48-0.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Do you think you
Oh
bumped
yeah,
up
it's all
TCU to 2
connected.
because you?
Every result in the country has some, unless you're talking about the Buffalo Akron game. Yeah, all these results weigh into it. Absolutely.
I just think that maybe you were kind of viewing TCU's win over K-State a more quality win now.
Sure,
Because
it is. But on the flip side, the win against Oklahoma State is less of a quality win.
I'm kind of wondering how many people are going to be down on Oklahoma State because of that, though. I mean, I still think that they're going to get as much clout as they were before. I mean, people were talking about them as a dark horse, and I mean, I assume they're probably still got a decent shot at a New Year's Six bowl.
Sure, they do. They have 2 losses in the conference, and so you've got quite a run in the Big 12 to see who plays TCU, unless TCU collapses, TCU for the conference championship. You've got, I don't know how many teams have 2 losses. Let's see. You've got TCU's undefeated, and then you've got Kansas State with 1 loss, and you've got Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas with 2 losses. So those are your candidates right there.
So, I mean, is a lot of this reasons that you just think the Big 12 is a good conference?
Yeah, it's a good conference. It's a deep conference. It does not have a bad team, really, in the conference.
Yeah, that's the one shining spot I think the Big 12 has. They don't have a Colorado or a Northwestern or a Boston College.
This is what the Big 12's done outside the conference. Let's review this, because that's all we can really go to when you really think about it, Mike. That's the only way to evaluate the whole conference is what they did outside the conference. Right?
Well, yeah. Now, also, you have to take into effect, how many of their games are against other Power 5.
Well, that's what we're going to look at.
Okay.
So TCU beat Colorado. That means nothing.
Yes, yeah.
That they are a Power 5. That means nothing. Forget it.
Yes.
Actually, their better win out of conference was against SMU. What does that mean? Okay, well, we'll give that the same credit as we give Maryland for beating SMU. Okay. Kansas State beat Missouri by 4 touchdowns. How great of a win is that? Not much of one. It's okay. It's a decent win, but they beat them by 4 touchdowns. Oklahoma State beat Arizona State by 3 scores. They beat them by 17.
I mean, you're going to name bottom feeder Power 5 here, so.
Yeah, but if we go do the same thing in the Big Ten, we're going to find the same thing. That's the problem with the entire sport, is we can't find many games that are that meaningful. Baylor beat BYU, or no, Baylor lost to BYU in overtime. So that's becoming a worse and worse loss. Texas, of course, took Alabama to the wire, 1-point game.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
That's a pretty credible result.
Yeah.
Oklahoma throttled Nebraska by 5 touchdowns. Whatever you want to make of that. It's obviously not worth much, but they did kill them, 49-14. Kansas beat Duke. Duke's a pretty good team.
Honestly, that's probably the best one you've named so far.
Well, except for the Alabama performance. Yeah, that's the best
Okay.
win.
Yeah, best win. Yeah.
Texas Tech lost to North Carolina State by a couple scores, and they beat Houston.
Houston is not the team that we thought they were preseason.
They're not bad.
They're not good.
They're top 60 good. All right. West Virginia lost to Pitt by a touchdown, and they beat Virginia Tech. That's not
Virginia
good.
Tech is pretty bad.
Iowa State beat Iowa.
Now that one, that actually had the potential to be a good one. I didn't realize. I mean, I knew Iowa's offense was not going to be good. I didn't know they were going to be historically bad this year. But
Okay, Mike, you ready for the Big Ten?
yep.
Michigan, nothing.
Okay. Yeah, we're not. Forget that one. Go on.
There's really nothing to say there. Ohio State beat Notre Dame. Yeah, it's a decent win.
Especially depending on, well, I mean, what they did to Syracuse, and if they put up
And North
a good
Carolina.
fight, or yeah, and that too.
It's becoming a better win, but it's not a great win. It's a top 40 win.
Yeah.
Penn State beat Auburn by 4 touchdowns. So they at least hammered them. But
Yeah, like I say, the fact that that was on the road as an SEC team and they just completely smashed them, I give that one a quality win.
yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, quality win, top 50 win. Okay. Again, Maryland, the aforementioned SMU win that kind of cancels out against TCU, I guess.
Yeah.
They didn't beat anyone else. Rutgers beat Boston College by 1 point.
Yeah, okay, forget
when
that
that happened, the first week of the season, I was applauding, saying that's a good win for the Big Ten. Their maybe worst team beat BC, and BC is supposed to go like 8-4 this year. BC's horrible. They just lost to UConn.
Yeah.
Okay. Indiana's not played it. They lost to Cincinnati by 3 scores. They got taken to overtime by Western Kentucky. If Western Kentucky hits a field goal on the last play of the game, they beat Indiana. So Indiana's been a negative on the non-conference schedule.
Well, now Western Kentucky, they're kind of a weird team. Isn't what the one that beat Florida International like 73-0 or something?
Yes, but still, you shouldn't have any team in your conference losing to Western Kentucky. And they didn't, but they went to overtime.
I'll give you that.
Michigan State got killed by Washington.
Yeah, that's not a good argument. Yeah, okay, moving on.
Illinois, going to the West, beat a bad Virginia team, but they beat them by 3 touchdowns. So they did what they should do. Purdue lost to Syracuse.
Syracuse, yeah, I know that one.
Very controversial game.
Yeah, they should have won that one.
Wire should have won the game. Yeah. Minnesota didn't play anyone.
No, Minnesota has not played anybody.
Nobody. Iowa lost that game to Iowa State.
Yep.
Wisconsin lost to Washington State. They're an okay team. Nebraska got crushed by Oklahoma by 5 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't even that close. And Northwestern, this is the crown jewel right there. They lost to Miami of Ohio. They lost to Southern Illinois, and they lost to Duke. They lost all 3 of their non-conference games.
Yeah, Northwestern doesn't exactly help the argument I'm trying to make. From everything you've said, the main thing I'm thinking is that Pac-12 is up pretty good.
Yeah. So, Mike, this is what I have to say about it. And I said this the last time I posted a video comparing all the conferences and ranking them. I truly believe that the Big Ten is the second best conference.
I agree.
But the results don't back that up. Now, the results don't say the Big Ten's the worst. It says that the SEC is the best, and then these other 4 conferences, based on the results, are...
There is a gap between especially more this year. There is a decent-sized gap between the SEC and whichever you want to make for a second. I personally think... I think the SEC is the clear best. And I would go Big Ten, call me a homer if you want. And then I would put ACC slightly above the pack. And then I think way, way down. I think the Big 12 is clearly the worst of the Power 5 this year. And I don't see.
You think the Big 12 is clearly the worst?
Oh, I think they are clearly the worst of the 5.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
You think that the ACC is clearly better than the Big 12?
Oh, 100% by leagues.
You think the Pac-12 is clearly better than the Big 12?
I think the argument could be made that this year, yeah. And I mean, normally I'm the one that dogs on the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever you want to call it, but they are considerably better this year than they have been in recent years.
I'm not necessarily finding quality wins in the Pac-12 either.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
Washington State went to Camp Randall and beat Wisconsin. I
They
mean,
beat a
even though
team.
they're down, they're not a terrible team.
They're not a terrible team, but isn't most of the Big Ten doing to Wisconsin what Washington State did to them?
Not really.
They're not.
I mean, probably their worst losses were Ohio State and Illinois. I think their other losses weren't really all that embarrassing.
They got killed by Ohio State
And killed by
and
Illinois, I
Illinois,
believe. Yeah.
and they killed Northwestern, who's awful, and they beat Michigan State in double overtime. And Wisconsin's other game in the conference is, where is it?
Purdue?
They they beat Purdue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And which is actually a good win now.
It is a good win.
If Michael Hogg had, I'm sure he'll think that's
It is a good win.
high quality win.
Yeah. I think that when you rack up a league that has beaten Oregon, Pitt, where am I? Utah, Texas, Georgia Tech, Cincinnati, Memphis, who else? Miami. I just think that the SEC has a deeper allotment of wins.
Oh yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think this year more than any other, the SEC is clearly the best conference. Like I said, in recent years, I could have made a 1-2 or even maybe a 1-1 small A for SEC in the Big Ten. But now clearly this year they're obviously better than us. That's, like I said, I don't think that's up for argument. But in recent years, I could have made the case that Big Ten hangs with them.
Well, Mike, I've said this many times. I will love the day when we can have, not you and I, but we as a voice of college football community can have a debate on the best conference. I want to be able to have a legitimate debate. I want to sit here in the off season and debate it all day, all night long, and have it be a legitimate, but I can't have that debate right now.
No, I agree. I'd have no leg to stand on this year. Like I said, especially because we have an entire division where pretty much every team except for one, well, Purdue is acceptable. But other than that, it's one and a half teams in the West that are decent. I mean, Illinois looks legit. They're obviously going to win the West by a landslide. But until we, kind of shore up our weak spots, yeah, I agree. Because the SEC's weak spots are much stronger than our weak spots. I guess my thing is that, the top SEC teams are better than the top Big Ten teams. The bottom SEC teams are better than our bottoms. I think the mid-level teams, I think we've had this conversation before where I think the mid-level teams are on par.
I think that there are one or two SEC teams at the top more. So there's a thicker top tier. However, wherever you want to separate that, I just think that Ohio State and Michigan versus Alabama and Georgia gets extended by the SEC with Tennessee, maybe LSU, that they have a couple near elite teams. Or maybe they are elite, one of them, Tennessee, maybe. Where the Big Ten, it stops with those two.
Well, I mean, and I'm also one of the people that said that you have LSU, what, 9, I think you have them?
That sounds right. It might be 8.
And see, and that's the other thing I don't see. I mean, they now their special teams aren't as bad as they were, but I remember one point in time they had the worst special teams I've ever seen in my life. That Florida State, they literally had to invent ways to lose that game to Florida State.
Okay. Well, I don't know that they've done that the rest of the season. Can you run through the LSU special teams for the rest of the season and tell me where they continue to make gaffes? If anything, maybe that underlines my point, Mike, that they're that good that if they cleaned up those gaffes, and that's what made them lose a game in week 1.
And then also the argument is that Tennessee went down in the valley and just absolutely smoked the snot out
Sure.
of them
And that happens sometimes with the number 1 team against the number 8 team in the country. Shoot, we see that in the playoff all the time.
on the road. Though that was a true road game.
Yeah, it certainly was a true road game. But also, I watched that game and it didn't become a blowout until the third quarter. It wasn't like they came out and it was 28-0 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, okay. And I guess I think maybe a lot of people are bigger on Jaden Daniels than I am.
I'm not that high on him. I think he's pretty scattershot, and I think he's hot and cold and has a ton of running ability and arm talent. I kind of separate arm strength and arm talent, more arm strength than talent. He misses a ton of throws, but he's had a hot few weeks, so we'll see if he can continue that.
And just what you said there, hot, cold, good running talent, inconsistent. You basically described Anthony Richardson out of
Yeah,
Florida,
I
and
did.
I don't think anybody's going to toot his horn.
I was thinking that when I was saying it.
Yeah, and ain't nobody going to stand up for him. I hope not.
I always love this comment. Can Brian Kelly win a big game? I need to have somebody define for me what a big. Every time somebody says big
Well,
game,
this
what,
Saturday counts as a big game.
so I guess he won games to get his team into the playoff twice and a national championship game. I thought that those were big games. I don't
Notre
know.
Dame has gotten by on a lot. I mean, like, remember, what was it about 10, 12 years ago when they were number 1 in the country,
Yeah.
playing in the BCS championship against number 2
yeah,
Alabama,
sure.
and nobody thought Notre Dame was even going to be competitive with Alabama.
And they weren't.
And in the end, they weren't. So like I say, Notre Dame has gotten by with a lot of luck over the last few years. Just because they make a playoff or a championship game does
Sure.
not mean they are good.
I understand that, but as soon as I see somebody who says so and so never wins a big game, then I ask them to define a big game. And if they go all the way to like playoff games and national championship games, and then I point out who's winning those games, how many, there's only like 4 guys that win those games.
Yeah, I don't equate big games with playoff games. Like I said, Brian Kelly's got a chance this weekend to win a big game, in my opinion.
Okay.
A very big game.
Well, we have to understand when Brian Kelly was at Notre Dame, he could not win a conference. So he couldn't win a conference championship. So big games, to me, equated to getting them in the playoffs.
Well, even so, Notre Dame does not shy away from scheduling the big boys, even when they're out of conference. They always, for a long time, they always played us until they backed out of that one. But they play USC, they'll play BYU, they'll
Sure.
play major teams.
Well, you know what has lightened Notre Dame's schedule? Their schedules used to be brutal.
Yeah.
The couple of things that have lightened their schedule is number 1, USC's been down.
Yeah.
Number 2, Stanford's been down. And number 3, they signed this ridiculous contract with the ACC, like they're actually playing in the ACC. So they play Duke, Georgia Tech, NC State, Louisville, a bunch of also rans, and that's watered down their schedule.
Yeah, they only did that so they can, be respectable, I guess, in basketball. I mean, basketball is the only reason they did that little agreement with the ACC.
Well, sure. When you can make a decision just based on basketball and you don't have to tie your football program to it, that's a nice place to be in.
And I hate that. That's why I can't stand NBC, because NBC is making Notre Dame legitimate by giving them their own stupid network.
Well, NBC is a business enterprise, so
And Notre Dame is still a name. I mean, you know they're they kind of remind me of like Miami. Miami, you know, they couldn't win a national title this anytime in the near future to save their lives, but they're still the U, so they kind of still draw eyes. Of course, they don't have their own television station. Like it's only Notre Dame in Texas. If you want to count the Longhorn Network, it's not just like SEC 2.0.
well, the Longhorn Network doesn't have anything close to the power that the SEC network does. It's pretty non-existent.
Well, I figure with Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, the Longhorn Network might just go away because I mean
Yeah.
they're owned by the SEC, so
Yep.
they're basically competing with themselves at that point.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's probably other people in line waiting to call in, so I'll go ahead and give them a turn.
Well, appreciate you being here, Mike.
Thanks a lot.
The Michigan love on this channel is phenomenal. We just did a Michigan live show. Actually, if you missed that, we were on for 2 hours focusing on the Michigan State incident, which I am certainly done talking about. But if anybody wants to discuss it, I'm here, and that's part of my job. But yeah, I've said about all I need to say at this point. We went on for 2 hours. I also posted a video. And keep in mind, if you check out the video that I posted on the Michigan State situation, and I did receive some criticism, and that's fine. If I'm going to get 500 comments on a video that gets watched a lot, that video blew up pretty well, then there are going to be criticisms. That's fine. But it's almost the same thing as when I post these top 25 videos and some other videos that I don't know that everyone listens to everything that is stated. So I clearly made it stated that I hadn't seen all the evidence and the information that continues to come out. So I have a harsher judgment on the situation than I did at this point last night when I posted that video. Uncle Rico, good to see him. Uncle Rico, thank you so much for that. Uncle Rico says Brian Kelly is 4-13 against top 10 teams since 2010. There's your stat. Well, Uncle Rico, as you watch us quite a bit here, and I appreciate that. You would probably guess that I pretty much knew that. But I believe the criticism against Brian Kelly was that he never wins any big games. Well, he beat 4 top 10 teams, or that he always gets blown out. And I'm not defending Brian Kelly's record at Notre Dame against top teams. It's not good, as evidenced there, but it's not. Everybody takes a narrative typically and they run it to one end of the spectrum or the other. And Brian Kelly his team did play with, who was the quarterback? I can't think of his name. Notre Dame 2017, the runner, can't throw worth a damn. Help me out, Notre Dame fans. It wasn't Everett Golson. It was after him. Oh, crap. Who was their quarterback in 2017? I can picture him, but I can't come up with his name. Brandon Wimbush. Thank you. Brandon Wimbush. Wow. Already forgot about him. His name. No, not Ian Book. Yes. Brandon Wimbush. And that's Brian Kelly's responsibility. So I certainly, if I was arguing with somebody else and I was arguing against Brian Kelly, I would say, well, that's a responsibility that he didn't have a good enough quarterback. So it was his responsibility that Brandon Wimbush was the quarterback in 2017. But they did play arguably the best team in the country, Georgia, who played in the national championship game and played in overtime. And they lost by 1 point in that game. So yeah, Brian Kelly's a really good coach. I believe he's one of the top 5 to 8 coaches in the country. Has he lost a ton of big games against top opponents? Yes. That 4-13 mark against top 10 teams since 2010, we know that 2 of those games were against Alabama. There was 2 national championship games or a playoff game. And we know that a smattering of those were against Clemson, the 2015 game, which was lost in a 2-point conversion in the rain. So another good performance, but they lost the game. The ACC championship game in 2018 and the playoff game, or the ACC championship game in 2020, the playoff game in 2018. So there's 5 out of 13 to Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State off the top of my head. Exploring with Ben. Appreciate you being here. As always, encouraging everyone to smash the like button. All right. I'm going to drop the link one more time. And if you have yet to do so, please check out the top 25 that actually makes sense and give me a call, give me a comment on it, see what you like and don't like about it, but at least understand the process. Understand there's some thought given to it. Think about this. How easy is it once you've assembled your top 25 the first week of the season just to make adjustments? Wake Forest was number 12. Oh, they really got killed. They looked awful against Louisville. We'll drop them to 21. TCU, again, looked good. We'll bump them up. You know, it's easy to look at a top 25 that you've carried from week to week to week and then just slightly adjust the teams and not really have any criticism from anyone. What's more difficult is to tear the thing apart every week and insert the schedule and what has changed about that schedule and reevaluating all those games. The Georgia win against Oregon is what it was in week 1. It was, okay, Georgia's playing one of the top 10 or 12 teams in the country. Oh, wow, they crushed them. And if we could only go back in time and pull up these comment sections, I would love to see how many people were saying Oregon's overrated, they're horrible, they're trash. I love that comment. Trash. And now Oregon just keeps showing that they're better and 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 better. Well, Georgia's win gets better and better and better and better and better and better. Well, the Georgia evaluation also includes Missouri, and it includes South Carolina, and that one's gone up and down. South Carolina beat Kentucky. They beat Texas A&M. Boom, lost to Mizzou. But you know what? Mizzou's also on Georgia's schedule, and of course, Mizzou beat South Carolina. So it all gets thrown in and evaluated. So that seems fairly easy to do when you're looking at one team, but it becomes like it crosses your eyes when you have to look at 70 teams. And you may have missed the comment I made to our first caller, to Real MVP, when I said that 42 teams in the country are either 5-2 or 6-3. That is crazy, 42 teams. So if we had a top 50, if we did a top 50 that actually makes sense, we still couldn't fit all 42 teams in that because we would have undefeated teams included and one-loss teams. Even if we had a top 50, we could not include all those teams that are vying for even the top 25. Yes. Okay. On Tuesday night at 7, we are going to be right here at 7 o'clock Eastern time, and I'm going to promote this thing everywhere I can because we had really good shows, really good crowds, real good time every Tuesday night last season for the college football playoff committee's rankings unveiling. Each and every Tuesday night, it was a good time. Everybody was here. So we're going to be here Tuesday night, and I'm going to simulcast across all the channels that have a stake in the college football playoff. So it's going to be on the Ohio State channel, the Michigan channel, the Bama channel, the Clemson channel, etc. And right here. So you can catch it anywhere you'd like. All right, folks, I think that about does it. Catch us tonight, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific, USC Live with Matt Zemek. Keep in mind the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Edward, peace. Catch us tonight talking USC football. And also, again, watch party, everyone. Let me put the banner up. Watch party. Where is it? Well, I can't find it, but again, everybody make it back next time would be Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern time for the big watch party of the college football playoff rankings. And then we'll take your calls. We'll watch it all together, and then we will take your calls and comments. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. And we are cranking out the content. I am going to get on the college football conference rankings. We're going to do that as well. The power rankings in each conference. Probably won't do a conference rankings until we get to the postseason, because there aren't really any more out-of-conference games, excluding those 4 played by the SEC against the ACC, but that's not enough to reevaluate. So check out my latest conference rankings, and we will address that again during bowl season, which is coming up soon. Can you believe it? We're sitting here on it's Halloween, October 31st. So we are only 1 month away from knowing who is playing in the conference championship games and staring at postseason play in college football. The season goes by like that. All right. If you've got a request for a video, please put those in the comments as well. Not here on the live chat, but in the comments of any of the videos, and I will consider them. I can't respond to all requests because some of them, unfortunately, for as much as I would like to do them, don't make sense for the channel. But great to see everybody here at the Voice of College Football again. Tuesday at 7 Eastern Time, college football playoff rankings watch party and call-in show. We will see you tomorrow night. In the meantime, USC Live tonight at 11 Eastern.